Good afternoon, English 11 people. Thank you for tuning in to the stream, or if you're watching this after the fact, thank you for also watching the video. So I hope that quarantine has been going well for all of you out there. I know I've personally really been enjoying reading all of your journal reflections actually. And, ooh, my music's kind of loud. I need to turn that down just a bit. Okay. And yeah, so it's been nice to be able to hear from all of you through your journal entries. There are going to be continual journals that you'll be filling out. However, these journals will be more so focused around your, like, the books that you're reading versus just like random questions. And depending on the week, I might still just throw in random questions, like just for fun. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think I have any major updates about anything other than just, you know, keep up with the curriculum online for sure. If you hear some noises coming from my apartment today, there's like this kind of like office space right next to my apartment complex that is being renovated and redone. So they're actually currently cutting down all the trees. So you're gonna hear a lot of saws. It's kind of sad that they're cutting down all those trees though, because I actually really liked those trees. They were really big, but they were always, like, they were dead already because, like, none of them grow leaves anymore. And that's one of the signs that a tree is dead, is when it just doesn't have leaves anymore. And, like, it's never had leaves in the entire time I've lived here, even during the summer. So today in particular, we're going to be focusing on the first week's worth of material. Now, I don't know if this like hour of me going through the lesson is actually going to be enough time. So we're going to just try to get through as much of it as we can. And then with whatever we don't get through, you know, you can of course ask me in office hours for more support, or you can email me if you need some more support. Oh, there's like a really big crane outside carrying a giant tree trunk, and it is very interesting to watch. It's been fun to just kind of like watch them do their work. So let me switch my screens over just so that way we can see what we're working with today. Coolio. So as you can see right here, I have this week's material pulled up, and there are some basic instructions right here. So it's going to be read through pages 1 to 3 of the lesson, and also read through pages 4 to 5 of the lessons. You're going to have a note sheet to do. And also the last thing is read your book and also do a 1-page kind of journal reflection about it. So if I click on the module tool, analyzing history, this is where it is right here. Now, for those of you who are interested, we still are going to be attaching the English 11 like curriculum calendar. So you can continue to check back on that if you ever have questions about what you should be doing and when you should be doing it. And this will be updated every single week. So let's go ahead and go back to our content, and we'll just jump right into 6.01, Analyzing Language. Now, I'm super excited to go through this because one of the English 11 teachers, Miss Lambert, actually put a ton of work into using this website called Genially, I don't know how to pronounce it, but she put a lot of work into putting this together so that way it can be a more interactive lesson. Because before this, it was mostly just kind of like read the slide, answer a question, read the slide, answer a question. And I think that this website is super slick. I might actually be doing this for some of my other classes. So it looks like that in this lesson, you will begin to understand that language is not concrete and has the ability to change over time. When these changes occur, however, people often refute the new usage or argue to keep the old usage in place. You will analyze the use of specific words as they are in a 1963 civil rights speech given by former United States President John F. Kennedy. And the assignment for this will be complete a quiz with some short answer questions. And then we've got some objectives down here. So we want to, number 1, learn that language usage can change over time and is sometimes contested. Number 2, interpret and analyze figures of speech. And number 3, determine the meaning of words as they are used in a particular text. So it looks like the core of this lesson is mostly around the use of language. Personally, I'm actually really interested in this topic of how language can change over time. I don't know how many of you like kind of tune into the evolution of the English language, but English is actually kind of a mess of a language. Like we're a mix of kind of like French and German and Latin and Greek. Like we just kind of borrow language from everywhere. And so it's really interesting when I come across people who are like, we must keep English pure. And I was like, you do know English is like probably one of the most impure languages in the world, just because we have literally borrowed language from every other language. So let's go ahead and click that next slide. So change happens. When it comes to language, change happens. Is there a way that I can make this full screen? Oh, there is. Cool. Hold on a second. I'm just gonna move my face down. So that way, and I'm gonna make my face smaller. All right, that's better. Y'all don't need to see my face that much. So change happens. So when it comes to language, change happens. Think about the way your parents or someone older might describe something they very much enjoy. Would they use the word cool? How about groovy? Maybe you know someone who would say rad. Each of these words likely represents the cultural influences to which each person has been exposed. Likewise, when you read literature from other time periods, you can easily see what language has changed drastically over the years. For example, this famous line from the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet, "O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" would correctly be translated to modern English as, "Hey Romeo, why is your name Romeo?" I know that's a common mistake. A lot of people think wherefore means where, but it doesn't. It means why in Old English. Ooh, look at that. So if I hover over this, it looks like groovy comes from the 1960s. Ooh, what is this one gonna be? Righteous, 1980s, I like it. And cool, 2000s. Oh my gosh, how many of you ever have seen or used a disc player like this before? Dude, when I was in elementary school and a little bit of middle school as well, this was like the thing. And sick. Wow, look at that iPod. Oh my gosh, I'm having flashbacks. I used to have an iPod like that too. I think I still have it. Let's go ahead and click to the next slide. So language over time. Because language has a tendency to change, we must take the time to understand exactly what a speaker intends to portray to his or her message. This video details one particular change in the way Americans use language. As you watch the video, why the term colored is so offensive, think about these questions. Why does language change over time? What cultural impact can occur due to change in language use? And why is it necessary to specifically define some words for a diverse audience? So let's go ahead and watch the video. I'm going to quiet down my other music quick and just turn up the desktop so that way everyone can hear the sound from the video.
Colored, it is just a word that has horrifying connotations. It just brings back with it echoes of signs that say, no coloreds here, coloreds not allowed. I think wherever you are in the world, it just takes you immediately back to a difficult time. And rightly or wrongly, and perhaps this is a little mean of me, whenever I hear a white person use the word colored to describe black people, I'm going to assume you don't have many black friends. Colored just has some of the most horrifying connotations. It carries with it echoes of a very difficult time. And it also carries with it my least favorite argument in the world, which is when people say, it's just a word. Words are all we have. And if somebody is telling you that this is not the word that they want used about themselves, then that's something that people need to learn to respect. The reality is a lot of people still to this day are confused by what word is acceptable, what word is politically correct to use, which is a horrifying phrase. I think the polite thing to do is to use the word that people themselves are comfortable being used, and that is definitely not colored.
Alrighty, so I really like that video right there, and I'm gonna actually move myself again so that way people can better see the questions. So again, the questions were, why does language change over time? What cultural impact can occur due to changes in language usage? And why is it necessary to specifically define some words for a diverse audience? And again, these are really important questions to be asking, because while we may think that language is just like this kind of, I don't know, this kind of like ambiguous thing that is constantly changing, like language really does affect people, and language can really affect people. I mean, think about this, like if language really didn't matter, I should be able to call anyone I want a butthead like all the time, and no one should get offended by that. But people do get offended by that. People do find offense by that, and that's because language matters, for sure. So going on to the next slide, I'm going to move my little camera back to where it was before. So necessity of defining words. So as he spoke to the American people in this speech, Kennedy defined such words as equal and free to an audience which likely held varying beliefs about these concepts. For example, many Americans still held to the doctrine of separate but equal at the time of this speech was given. Kennedy seeks to overturn the nation's previous conception of the ideas of equal and free in order to improve the lives of all Americans. So up here it says, the Civil Rights Address given by President John F. Kennedy in 1963 provides a detailed example of the necessity to define certain words for a diverse audience. The lesson after this will help break the speech down for you, and you'll work to determine the method of JFK's argument. As you read the text of the speech, take notes to indicate the ways in which Kennedy elaborates on the definitions of these words. You will use your notes later for the assessment for this lesson. So yeah, make sure that when you're going through this that you have a notebook or a Google Doc open, so that way you can be taking some notes. I think we have reached the end. Yes, we have reached the end. So we can go to the next part, 6.01, JFK Civil Rights Speech Overview. Ooh, more genially, my favorite. Ooh, this one's a scroller one. Okay, I like that. So John F. Kennedy's Civil Rights Address, historical context. So it looks like the historical context was that on June 11th, 1963, President Kennedy made the decision to give a televised evening speech announcing his Civil Rights Bill proposal to ensure equal rights to all races. So I guess what I'm seeing from this is that like President Kennedy was trying to make a statement about the state of race in America. And keep in mind that this is right in the height of the civil rights movement. And so like the unrest between white people and black people was probably like at its highest during this time. What else is going on? So it was a radio broadcast. It's pretty cool. So it says that on June 11th, 1963, President Kennedy made the decision to give a televised evening speech announcing his Civil Rights Bill proposal to ensure... Oh wait, that's like the same. I just read the same thing twice. My bad. So the introduction, it says, this afternoon, this is a quote from the speech, this afternoon, following a series of threats and defiant statements, the presence of Alabama National Guardsmen was required on the University of Alabama to carry out the final and unequivocal order of the United States District Court on the Northern District of Alabama. What happens if I click on this? Oh. So if I click on it, it opens up the full chunk of text that it's from. So to continue on, it says, that order called for the admission of two clearly qualified young Alabama residents who happened to have been born Negro. That they were admitted peacefully on the campus is due in good measure to the conduct of the students of the University of Alabama who met their responsibilities in a constructive way. I hope that every American, regardless of where he lives, will stop and examine his conscience about this and other related incidents. This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. So that's really interesting. I think that he's actually pulling this whole like all men are created equal. That's like I'm pretty sure that's a quote directly from the Constitution. Or no, not the Constitution. Sorry, that's my bad. The Declaration of Independence. that the forefathers drafted up. So that's pretty interesting. And I guess, so what does it say as a note for what this is? So JFK is telling his listeners what he is reacting to so they know why he's about to give this speech and why his argument is important. Okay, so I guess that is really important. Like, you know, especially when you're about to give a speech about something, a hot topic like race or anything like that. Yes, it is very important to kind of tell people the context behind why you're giving this speech at all and like the purpose. So here's a thesis. Let's take a look at this. Today, we are committed to a worldwide struggle to promote and protect the rights of all who wish to be free. And when Americans are sent to Vietnam or West Berlin, we do not ask for whites only. So again, this is also happening during the height of the Vietnam War as well. So there's a lot of things going on right now, like multiple issues just kind of compounding and getting all messed up together. So, number one of his main points, so it ought to be possible, therefore, for American students of any color to attend any public institution they select without having to be backed up by troops. 2, it ought to be possible for American consumers of any color to receive equal service in places of public accommodation, such as hotels and restaurants and theaters and retail stores, without being forced to resort to demonstrations in the streets. And it ought to be possible for American citizens of any color to register and vote in a free election without interference or fear of reprisal. It ought to be possible, in short, for every American to enjoy the privileges of being American without regard to his race or his color. In short, every American ought to have the right to be treated as he would wish to be treated, as one would wish his children to be treated. But this is not the case. So something I love about this is the repetition, actually, you know, using this it ought to be possible, it ought to be possible, and it ought to be possible, it ought to be possible. So Kennedy is like building a lot of this, like, you know, he's using his pathos and his ethos to build this up. And then he gets to the end over here at the end of his thesis and just kind of like nails it home by saying like, but this is not the case. Very beautiful writing. So in JFK's thesis, he gives his argument for equality and breaks it into the 3 pieces he intends to fight for. 1, the desegregation of schools, 2, the desegregation of public spaces, and 3, voting for all races. And again, remember at the end of this, he does say that this is not the case. So the reason why he's fighting for all of this is because it is currently not the case in America. So coming up in the next part, we got the closure. So therefore, I am asking for your help in making it easier for us to move ahead and to provide the kind of equality of treatment which we would want ourselves, to give a chance for every child to be educated to the limit of his talent. As I've said before, not every child has an equal talent or an equal ability or equal motivation, but they should have the equal right to develop their talent and their ability and their motivation to make something of themselves. We have a right to expect that Negro community will be responsible, will uphold the law, but they have a right to expect that the law will be fair, that the Constitution will be colorblind, as Justice Harlan said at the turn of the century. This is what we're talking about, and this is a matter which concerns this country and what it stands for. And in meeting it, I ask for the support of all our citizens. Thank you very much. Ooh, so kind of like a call to action right there at the end. Kind of like a, hey, we have to do this together as a community. Definitely a good way to end a speech. Oh, look, and that's right in the notes. So JFK's call to action of the American people listening is a request of the support for this bill. He mirrors his language used in the introduction to treat others as you would want to be treated. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Did I? Oh yeah, he does like the parallel structures again. So, yep, he is mirroring it. Cool. Alright, that's the end of that part. So let's take a look at the full text now this time. Let's go ahead and make this full screen again so you can interact with it. So this says that there are problem solution model, and I am just going to go ahead and make my little camera a little bit smaller again so it takes up less space on the screen. So this says there are several ways that you can set up a relationship between topics. Problem solution is one way. Problem solution is when you explain that a problem exists, you list out examples of that problem, then you propose a solution. You may give examples for how that solution can be applied or examples of why this solution is the best fix. So let's take a look at some of these problems. So people breaking laws and rules. The solution is to enforce laws and rules. What happens if I click on that? What is needed to attain the ideal OLE? What? Wait, what's an OLE? What activities and strategies must be put in place for this? Huh? Okay, I'm confused about what an OLE is. When did they mean? Did I miss a definition somewhere? So if there are loopholes or gaps in a lawsuit, they need to make new laws and rules. People don't know when they're doing something wrong. Perhaps education and awareness might be the solution for that. Disagreements and not working together might be a problem, and the solution could be work out a compromise. Ooh, this one over here, lack of resources. Okay, that's a really big one that is affecting like a lot of the world, but specifically America right now, that we see this kind of lack of resources. I mean, we see it in our healthcare system specifically right now because, you know, we have medical workers who are not getting the materials they need to do their jobs in the safest way possible. Just lack of hospital space, lack of ventilators, etc. What resources? Oh my gosh, okay. A whole tree just came down. Sorry, I got distracted. Like, they just knocked down an entire tree out there. Oh, that's so sad. That was one of my favorite trees too. Oh my gosh. I mean, okay, it was only one of my favorite trees because it had this branch that was always just kind of like hanging like this. And it was like clearly broken, but like the branch has been up there for a very long time. And I see that I don't think it has fallen off yet either, even though it's now on the ground. But that's sad. It always feels sad when a tree gets knocked down. Anyways, back on track. Ooh, read along as John F. Kennedy addresses the U.S. nation in his civil rights speech. So let's go ahead and listen to this. I'm going to stop my music. I'm going to turn this up. And we will listen to the civil rights speech.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This afternoon, following a series of threats and defiant statements, the presence of Alabama National Guardsmen was required on the University of Alabama to carry out the final and unequivocal order of the United States District Court of the Northern District of Alabama. That order called for the admission of two clearly qualified young Alabama residents who happened to have been born Negro. That they were admitted peacefully on the campus is due in good measure to the conduct of the students at the University of Alabama who met their responsibilities in a constructive way. I hope that every American, regardless of where he lives, will stop and examine his conscience about this and other related incidents. This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. Today we are committed to a worldwide struggle to promote and protect the rights of all who wish to be free. And when Americans are sent to Vietnam or West Berlin, we do not ask for whites only. It ought to be possible, therefore, for American students of any color to attend any public institution they select without having to be backed up by troops. It ought to be possible for American consumers of any color to receive equal service in places of public accommodation, such as hotels and restaurants and theaters and retail stores, without being forced to resort to demonstrations in the street. And it ought to be possible for American citizens of any color to register and to vote in a free election without interference or fear of reprisal. It ought to be possible, in short, for every American to enjoy the privileges of being American without regard to his race or his color. In short, every American ought to have the right to be treated as he would wish to be treated, as one would wish his children to be treated. But this is not the case. The Negro baby born in America today, regardless of the section of the state in which he is born, has about 1/2 as much chance of completing a high school as a white baby, born in the same place on the same day. 1/3 as much chance of completing college. 1/3 as much chance of becoming a professional man. Twice as much chance of becoming unemployed. About 1/7 as much chance of earning $10,000 a year. A life expectancy which is 7 years shorter, and the prospects of earning only half as much. This is not a sectional issue. Difficulties over segregation and discrimination exist in every city, in every state of the Union, producing in many cities a rising tide of discontent that threatens the public safety. Nor is this a partisan issue. In a time of domestic crisis, men of goodwill and generosity should be able to unite regardless of party or politics. This is not even a legal or legislative issue alone. It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right. We are confronted primarily with a moral issue. It is as old as the Scriptures and is as clear as the American Constitution. The heart of the question is whether all Americans are to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities, whether we are going to treat our fellow Americans as we want to be treated. If an American, because his skin is dark, cannot eat lunch in a restaurant open to the public, if he cannot send his children to the best public school available, if he cannot vote for the public officials who represent him, if, in short, he cannot enjoy the full and free life which all of us want, then who among us would be content to have the color of his skin changed and stand in his place? Who among us would then be content with the counsels of patience and delay? 100 years of delay have passed since President Lincoln freed the slaves, yet their heirs, their grandsons, are not fully free. They are not yet freed from the bonds of injustice. They are not yet freed from social and economic oppression. And this nation, for all its hopes and all its boasts, will not be fully free until all its citizens are free. We preach freedom around the world, and we mean it. And we cherish our freedom here at home. But are we to say to the world, and much more importantly, to each other, that this is a land of the free, except for the Negroes? That we have no second-class citizens, except Negroes? That we have no class or caste system, no ghettos, no master race, except with respect to Negroes? Now the time has come for this nation to fulfill its promise. The events in Birmingham and elsewhere have so increased the cries for equality that no city or state or legislative body can prudently choose to ignore them. The fires of frustration and discord are burning in every city, north and south. Where legal remedies are not at hand, redress is sought in the streets, in demonstrations, parades, and protests, which create tensions and threaten violence and threaten lives. We face, therefore, a moral crisis as a country and a people. It cannot be met by repressive police action. It cannot be left to increase demonstrations in the streets. It cannot be quieted by token moves or talk. It is a time to act in the Congress, in your state and local legislative body, and above all, in all of our daily lives. It is not enough to pin the blame on others, to say this is a problem of one section of the country or another, or deplore the facts that we face. A great change is at hand, and our task, our obligation, is to make that revolution, that change, peaceful and constructive for all. Those who do nothing are inviting shame as well as violence. Those who act boldly are recognizing right as well as reality. Next week, I shall ask the Congress of the United States to act, to make a commitment it is not fully made in this century to the proposition that race has no place in American life or law. The federal judiciary has upheld that proposition in a series of forthright cases. The executive branch has adopted that proposition in the conduct of its affairs, including the employment of federal personnel, the use of federal facilities, and the sale of federally financed housing. But there are other necessary measures which only the Congress can provide, and they must be provided at this session. The old code of equity law under which we live commands for every wrong a remedy. But in too many communities, in too many parts of the country, wrongs are inflicted on Negro citizens, and there are no remedies at law. Unless the Congress acts, their only remedy is the street. I am therefore asking the Congress to enact legislation giving all Americans the right to be served in facilities which are open to the public: hotels, restaurants, theaters, retail stores, and similar establishments. This seems to me to be an elementary right. Its denial is an arbitrary indignity that no American in 1963 should have to endure, but many do. I recently met with scores of business leaders, urging them to take voluntary action to end this discrimination. And I've been encouraged by their response. And in the last 2 weeks, over 75 cities have seen progress made in desegregating these kinds of facilities. But many are unwilling to act alone. And for this reason, nationwide legislation is needed if we are to move this problem from the streets to the courts. I'm also asking Congress to authorize the federal government to participate more fully in lawsuits designed to end segregation in public education. We have succeeded in persuading many districts to desegregate voluntarily. Dozens have admitted Negroes without violence. Today, a Negro is attending a state-supported institution in every one of our 50 states, but the pace is very slow. Too many Negro children entering segregated grade schools at the time of the Supreme Court's decision 9 years ago will enter segregated high schools this fall, having suffered a loss which can never be restored. The lack of an adequate education denies the Negro a chance to get a decent job. The orderly implementation of the Supreme Court decision, therefore, cannot be left solely to those who may not have the economic resources to carry the legal action, or who may be subject to harassment. Other features will be also requested, including greater protection for the right to vote. But legislation, I repeat, cannot solve this problem alone. It must be solved in the homes of every American, in every community across our country. In this respect, I want to pay tribute to those citizens, North and South, who've been working in their communities to make life better for all. They are acting not out of a sense of legal duty, but out of a sense of human decency. Like our soldiers and sailors in all parts of the world, they are meeting freedom's challenge on the firing line, and I salute them for their honor and their courage. My fellow Americans, this is a problem which faces us all, in every city of the North as well as the South. Today, there are Negroes unemployed 2 or 3 times as many compared to whites. Inadequate education, moving into the large cities, unable to find work, young people particularly out of work without hope, denied equal rights, denied the opportunity to eat at a restaurant or a lunch counter or go to a movie theater, denied the right to a decent education, denied almost today the right to attend a state university even though qualified. Seems to me that these are matters which concern us all, not merely presidents or congressmen or governors, but every citizen of the United States. This is one country. It has become one country because all of us and all the people who came here had an equal chance to develop their talents. We cannot say to 10% of the population that you can't have that right. Your children can't have the chance to develop whatever talents they have. That the only way that they're going to get their rights is to go in the street and demonstrate. I think we owe them and we owe ourselves a better country than that. Therefore, I'm asking for your help in making it easier for us to move ahead and to provide the kind of equality of treatment which we would want ourselves. To give a chance for every child to be educated to the limit of his talent. As I've said before, not every child has an equal talent or an equal ability or equal motivation, but they should have the equal right to develop their talent and their ability and their motivation to make something of themselves. We have a right to expect that the Negro community will be responsible, will uphold the law, but they have a right to expect that the law will be fair, that the Constitution will be colorblind, as Justice Harlan said at the turn of the century. This is what we're talking about, and this is a matter which concerns this country and what it stands for. And in meeting it, I ask the support of all of our citizens. Thank you very much.
Wow, what a speech. So, yeah, so we listened to the speech, and if you wanted to read along, there is the Google Doc version of it available as well. And if you wanted to like highlight or make comments or anything like that, then you can certainly do that. You just have to make your own copy of it to do that. What's coming up next? Ooh, okay. Oh, let me make this full screen again so that way we see everything. So it looks like I have to identify the problems that JFK outlines in his speech and drag them here, and then identify the solutions that JFK identifies. So let's see how this works. So what if I click on the systemic experience? So the Negro baby born in America today, regardless of the section of the state in which he is born, has about 1/2 as much chance as completing a high school. Okay, so that sounds like a problem to me. Hypocrisy of mindset. We preach freedom around the world, and we mean it, and we cherish our freedom. But we are to say the world much more importantly to each other than this is the land of the free, except for the Negroes, that we have no second-class citizens except Negroes. Okay, so that sounds like another problem here. Wait, are all the problems just up here at the top? Okay, yeah, segregated school is definitely a problem. Convincing the community. Okay, so he's calling on people to try to, like, be better. Definitely a problem. Wait, no. These are all just, like, solutions. Okay, yeah, that's all it is. So all the problems are on the top and all the solutions are on the bottom. But, I mean, there are definitely some things in there. 100 years of delay have passed since President Lincoln freed the slaves. Are freely freed. They are yet to be freed from bonds of injustice. They are not yet freed from the social... Oh wait, that's a problem. That's not a solution. Okay, so those are solutions. Are any of these secretly solutions? Okay, no, I think that's right. So, is there a way that I check? I guess I just... Oh, just kidding, I just move on. Oh, there's the... Okay. There's the answer. Oh, convince the community was a solution. I did that one wrong. Oh, but it's not there when I go back. Okay. So convincing the community was one of the solutions as well, which I guess, yeah, that makes sense. I guess the way that it was phrased and worded, I thought that it was a problem. That it's like, the community can't be convinced, but I think I misinterpreted that. Cool. So... Alright. So now that means the last thing to do is just taking the quiz, which I am not going to take the quiz on here because all of you got to do that on your own. I hope that you enjoyed watching the stream and going through the curriculum and things. Yeah, the only last thing that I'll take a look at is I'll actually just take a look at what journal prompt number 4 is. So it says, please choose from 2 prompts from options for the day, or just give me an update about what's happening in your life. Please do your writing in a Google Doc that you submit on Buzz, so exactly what you've been doing before. So the following prompts, day 4 on, relate to the book that you are reading. So remember, you are supposed to have kind of like a free choice book that you are doing during this quarantine time. It doesn't matter what book you're reading, it just has to be a book, like literally any book. So it looks like write about something that intrigues, impresses, amuses, shocks, puzzles, disturbs, or repulses, or aggravates you in your book. So I guess basically just like what is making you feel any feeling in these books. Or the other question is, do any of the characters remind you of friends, family members, or classmates, and explain. I'll be doing this journal eventually. I haven't quite gotten far enough in my book yet to actually like write this down. I just started reading a new book by one of my new favorite authors. I'm blanking on the name of the book now, but that's what I'm going to be doing my kind of like journal prompts about. So I'll keep you all updated about that. And then there's a turn-in spot for that. So you just turn it in the same way that you do for everything else. So easy peasy. Oh, this week's lesson was like not too bad, not gonna lie. Like it was pretty straightforward. Like watch the speech, you know, understand the point of it, etc., etc. But I mean, also I'm like an adult, I'm 24, so this is not my first time at the educational rodeo, so of course some of this stuff is gonna take me less time than it's gonna take you to go through. If you have any questions about this, make sure that you email me, or you can also tune into my live, my Google Meet office hours, which are coming up later this week on Thursday. Remember to check you can check the office hours schedule and just click directly on the link to go there. I believe I'm going to end it there. I know that there is still about 20 minutes left of this live stream, but I mean, we have no more curriculum to go through. Like the rest is kind of on you. Just take the quiz, fill out the journal prompt, write down your journal prompt, and then you will be fine and dandy. So thank you very much for tuning into the live stream today. Or if you're watching this after the fact, thank you very much for also tuning into the video. I appreciate all of you very much. Remember, don't touch your face and wash your hands. Bye, y'all.